Good evening. It's a Thursday night, and we will bring you Thursday night webinars on occasion when there's something very, very special, and that would be tonight. So on the fourth Thursday of each month, we're going to join a meeting in progress in Omaha, Nebraska. Why? Because the special opportunity is for you to hear from Dr. Mark Christian. Dr. Mark Christian is a Christian, converted from Islam, grew up as a child in a Muslim family in Egypt, became an imam, and in his work associated with members of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. He is now in America, he's now a Christian, and he's got a very, very special perspective, and we'd like for you to listen in as he leads the meeting of Global Faith in Omaha.
Everybody's talking about the impeachment right now, right? The bad thing is actually when we are looking at the impeachment and what's going on, as boring, and we can make jokes about it and stuff like that, still not a slam dunk. You know, I hope that he's going to fire back at the left and the Democrats and the people who are trying to distort our country. But we still need to fight, and we need to continue educating people about what's going on. And the other thing that is really bothering me is with everything is going on, we are not getting the real news and what's supposed to be, in our midst and understanding what's going on. And at the same time, people are kind of losing track of how the other side is really successful in the impeachment. They are not going to be successful in removing the president and overturning the election. But at the same time, they are able to work things underneath what is going on and to get their agenda pushed forward. One of the things that bothered me a lot lately, I don't know if you know this or not, but Harvard University announced and put some kind of a study together about different books and stuff like that, and they said that the Quran is the most impressive book about justice in human history. And not only stopped at that, but they actually picked a verse from the Quran and they put it at their library as a representation of how the Quran is a very just book and pushing for justice and so forth. This is in the United States of America, and this is quite personal to me as well, because look at Bezos, right? Many of you know Bezos, and you know the allegations lately about him saying that the Saudi Arabia crown prince hacked into his phone and so forth. And the article was published in the Washington Post, and in the front of that article there was a very interesting picture that grabbed my attention immediately. And it's writing op-eds and stuff like that, and he was killed last year, and they putting a memorial for him and making him a hero while he was not. But this is not actually the point of today. It's actually the picture itself was quite revealing to me, because I looked at Bezos as putting his hand on the memorial, in front and behind him a group of people that it reminded me right away, for many reasons, with the picture of George W. Bush standing in DC right after 9/11 and making the assertion that Islam is a religion of peace. The reason that reminded me with that picture is because the number of people behind Bezos are exactly the same. One of them is exactly the same person. Nihad Awad is one of the people that's standing behind Bezos in that picture. For you who don't know, Nihad Awad is the head of Council of American-Islamic Relationship. Many people say CARE. How deceiving that word is, because CARE looks like very caring and so forth, but they are the head of the political arm of the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States of America. They are located in Washington, D.C. They have been there since 1994. They are the biggest lobbyist movement in the United States against the United government to push them for Islamic agendas and Islamic things and so forth. So we will continue our conversation and welcome all of you online. Thanks for joining us. So I was talking about Nihad Awad taking, he's in the picture right behind Bezos while he was in the Washington Post kind of article talking about the MBS hacking his. So here is the point that I was trying to highlight over here. Nihad Awad, the head of Council of American-Islamic Relationship, is not allowed or not welcome in many of the Muslim countries across the globe. and yet he's allowed to function and work inside the United States and being a lobbyist and be working inside Washington, D.C. That is very interesting, don't you think? That's a very interesting state, and how he was able to put himself into the political, arena, and how he started way back when he put the thousands of dollars into the efforts of recovery during Oklahoma bombing way back, and then how he worked with the Clintons and Al Gore. He was on Al Gore, by the way, campaign back in 2000, right before 9/11. And one of the most interesting things as well, Nihad Awad, during Al Gore campaign, he was advisor to Al Gore on aviation, and he has no aviation background whatsoever. I have no idea how he got that gig, but it's very interesting that somebody with no background whatsoever in aviation, he was on the aviation, advisory team for Al Gore. I don't know why, but then right there you have 9/11 took place right after that. I'm not trying to connect the dots or not, you just connect it yourself. It's up to you, right? And to have him and to look at what's going on in the country with Ilhan Omar, with Tlaib, and all of those people, when I look at it as well, is when I see the stories of Nihad Awad, for example, a guy who born and grew up in young age in refugee camps in Jordan, and then he was allowed in the United States of America, and he was allowed to get education and become an engineer, and then have this status that he is. He should be a good American success story, that he would be a champion of the United States of America. Don't you think? Somebody's getting all of those benefits coming to the United States. The same thing like Ilhan Omar, the same like Tlaib was born here. But, like with those kind of stories, it seems like those people are supposed to be champions of the United States, supposed to be understanding why the country stands for and the opportunity that they have. Unfortunately, they're exactly the opposite of what they are doing, okay? And why I'm mentioning all of those incidents about Nihad Awad, about the visas, about Harvard University, because while we are distracted with the impeachment, or we are letting our guards down thinking, okay, we won 2016 election, and we are sick and tired of everything going on, we just need to calm down and forget about things. I have other things to do, and maybe with the economy is going well, and we're making better money, so we are busy enjoying our life and so forth. All of that is great. But you have to understand that the enemy is not going to take a break. The left is not taking a break. They are trying to distract us as much as they can, but they are working hard every day to accomplish their own agenda, and even stronger than before. And taking advantage of us, not focused, distracted, having victory laps, or tired and bored, or they are sucked into all the media and what's going on. So we need to understand that we have a mission that we need to do as well, to continue getting educated and continue fighting the good fight, and not just letting our guards down, okay? Today, I have a couple of topics I would also want to focus on. Number one is Iran and what was going on with Soleimani. I want to talk about the Peninsula as well, and the terrorist attack that took place over there, and just, make you understand behind the scenes a little bit, and how to see how things are tying together. One of the things that the media and the left is trying to make us feel and believe, that Trump has no plan whatsoever in the Middle East, that he's just going haphazardly, and he just do things without, thinking, and, knee-jerking everything, and one thing comes up in his way, he's doing it, and he has no plan whatsoever. But if you actually understand, what is really going on and his agenda, and we talked numerous times about the deal of the century and other things that he's trying to accomplish in the Middle East, and to understand, the role of different things and what's going on, and this is what I'm going to try to do today, you will understand that really there is a very good agenda, and this agenda is very ambitious, and actually is going to provide Americans with better national security than what we had through the Bushes and the Clintons and the Obamas and the time of Hillary Clinton and so forth. At the same time, it might provide some kind of peace in the Middle East. Adding to all of this, it might actually start pulling the plug a little bit on the bonding of all the terrorists across the globe. And when we are looking at Islamic agenda and the left, it's very interesting how they are tying together, working together. The unholy alliance between the left and Islamic movement is unbelievable, and is getting stronger every day, and getting more suspicious every day. And I wish people will pay attention more to it, more than they are, okay? And if I look back to what is going on or why we are here, when we look at Iran, when we look at Saudi Arabia, when we look at even the terrorist attack that took place in the Peninsula and the students over here, it was very hard when I'm doing the preparation for all of this to ignore the fact that many of those problems started around 1979 during Jimmy Carter era. And it is very interesting to see that it seems like that year and the year before that was crucial and very, telling about what we are dealing with today. And why I'm saying this? Because in 1979, you have the Islamic Revolution in Iran, and Jimmy Carter was one of those who helped Ayatollah Khomeini and the regime altogether to rise to power over there and to overthrow the very progressive, government in Iran. And later on, he messed up and did some other issues that led to the embassy hostage and so forth. The other thing is in 1979 as well, this was the peace treaty that took place between the Egyptians and the Israelis by the aid of Jimmy Carter administration and him himself, and hosting them in Camp David and so forth. And that led to the programs that having all of those Middle Eastern military personnel to come to the United States and have access to the United States Air Force and intelligence and all of the stuff that they're doing, that the guy that in Pensacola did the attack. The other thing that happened in 1979 as well, Saudi Arabia, even though it is a Sharia-abiding country, and they have been in that position since the inception of Saudi Arabia, until 1979, they were some kind of struggling with their own identity and their alliance with the West. And then an incident took place in the Grand Mosque over there, and very quickly the Saudi Arabia started flipping to be a very strict in applying the Sharia law rules and regulations, and they have the Sharia police in the streets and so forth after the bombing of after the attack on the American embassy in Pakistan and so forth, and that led to Saudi Arabia that we are seeing, or we have been seeing until a couple of years ago. And this is the same Saudi Arabia that gave birth to the hijackers that did 9/11 and to Osama bin Laden that built the Qaeda and so forth. So 1979, during Jimmy Carter, all of those stuff was taking place, and all of those, he was not responsible at all of them, but all of them happened during his era and his failure, national security stuff. And so when they talk about national security and failures of Trump and so forth, we have to understand that the Democrats and the left, the national security agenda has been a failure altogether from get-go, from Jimmy Carter. And you look at Obama and what he did, with his national security and the chaos that he created in the Middle East and the bloodshed that we have till today in Egypt or in Libya or in Syria or in Yemen. All of those happened under the umbrella or under the administration of Obama. And the biggest joke ever that he started his presidency by getting a Nobel Peace Prize. I think he should give it back. And, I think so. If he's an honest guy, he will give it back. He has enough money right now from book sales and stuff like that. But this is the joke the joke of the reality that we are living in, okay? And one other thing that we have to understand as well from all of those key players, that Israel, when I'm talking about the peace treaty, are you okay?
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me at that? You're scaring me. Okay, I'm doing good. Okay. Israel is a key player in all of those organizations and movement and so forth. When you look at Soleimani, for example, he was leading some kind of force in the Iranian, like his Iranian force branch. Do you know the name of that branch? Do you know what was he leading of? Vicky knows because she was listening to me during lunch. His branch is called Quds. Okay, Quds, right? What is the meaning of Quds? Yeah, what is the meaning of that? Yeah.
That's where you get rid of the leadership.
No. Yeah, maybe, but Quds actually means Jerusalem, by the way. Quds is the name of Jerusalem in Arabic. So he was leading the Quds forces. Why? Because he is promising that he will lead the Quds forces. Mark should know that, right? You didn't raise your hands. It's a fellow Egyptian over here, amazing guy, fellow believer in Christ, right? Rock on. So he's, you know, he is leading these forces with the promise. Well, there is no promise anymore because he's gone. Thanks God. You know, he was promising, or his forces promising, that they will liberate Jerusalem and they will be able to, you know, remove Israel off the map. The other thing is, you know, uniting with that as well. When you look at Osama bin Laden, you know, I'm trying to, you know, look at what they are trying to do and why, how Israel is crucial in that. Osama bin Laden built an organization. You know the name of that organization? Al-Qaeda. What is the meaning of that? Al-Qaeda. What's the meaning of that? The base. What does that mean, the base? He was promising that he is building a base in Afghanistan, that from there he will build an Islamic movement that will liberate Jerusalem as well and remove Israel off the map. Okay? One of the most uniting force and inspiring issues in the terrorist and the jihadist and the Islamist movement is the state of Israel. So when you look at what Trump is trying to accomplish, and he's trying to end the Arab-Israeli, at least trying to do Arab-Israeli conflict, this means that terrorists don't like that, Islamists are not going to like that, and by default, the Democrats and the left are not going to like that. Why? Because this is not just solving one problem in the Middle East. This is actually solving not just one problem. It is actually eliminating the cause, or at least eliminating the binding force of all the terrorists altogether. Another point I want to highlight as well. Many people don't, you know, all of you, you know, most of you, I guess, that you know that there is a fight between the Shia and the Sunni in Islam, right? You know that, right? So it is very hard to understand how the Shia and the Sunni can be united in one thing or another when they are coming to jihad. You have ever had that question, or you don't understand even that? True or not? Yes? Anybody? Or huh? Well, you know, in a way, I was gonna try to maybe give you better understanding of what I'm talking about. The Shia, represented by the Iranian regime and Soleimani, and the Sunni is represented by Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, and Muslim Brotherhood, and so forth. This is one force, Shia Islam, and the other is the Sunni Islam. Usually they don't get along. They have never been getting along since 1400 years ago, right after Muhammad died. Until today, both of them are not on the same page whatsoever and fight with each other. But when it comes to terrorism, it seems somehow, some way, they get along, and it's kind of confusing to some people. That makes it easy to where I'm coming from. So usually Al-Qaeda and Iran are not supposed to be on the same page. Why would that matters to us? Most of Al-Qaeda members and 9/11 hijackers, most of them are what? Are Sunni, right? We did not hear much about the Shiite fighters or Shiite bombing or Soleimani bombing us or any of that stuff. Did you hear about that before? But at the same time, they are telling us that Soleimani is involved in many of the attacks on Americans and embassies, and he was planning some more, and he was working with Al-Qaeda and so forth. Those who are interested into the Islamic movement, and they will be confused about the working force between the Shiite and the Sunni, or the Shia terrorist and the Sunni terrorist. Why they would work with each other, even they were fighting with each other for the last 1400 years. Again, what is uniting them? If you ever had that question, seems like you never had that question before. I will assume you have that question. If you ever had that question or have better understanding of what's going on, you will know that the uniting force between both of them is two things. Number one is Israel, because both of them will advocate, will fight to remove Israel off the map. And the second thing is the caliphate system or the Islamic system. Even though Osama bin Laden, for example, coming from Saudi Arabia, a government that is pushing Sharia law, advocating for Sharia law, it is the law of the land. There is no other criminal code or constitution other than Sharia. Supposedly, it is kind of living by Islam. But because of the Saudis has been good friends of the United States of America, or at least pretending to be, that is a dividing between the Islamic movement and the Saudi government since ever, and even more today. So the Shia and the Sunni are united on three things: the removal of Israel. The second thing is both of them are wanted to fight the United States of America in every way they can. And the third thing, both of them actually wants to remove all the regimes in the Middle East. They want to remove the Saudi regime, they want to move the Egyptian regime, and they want to move the Jordanians and all of those stuff. So this is the uniting force between the two of them. And this is why after 9/11, when we start launching our attack in Afghanistan, the Qaeda members run away very quickly to find safe haven, some of them in Iran. And who hosted them? Soleimani. How did that happen? Because they have common cause together. Make sense? You have any questions so far?
Mark, isn't that a lot like the Axis powers really leading up to when the first part of World War II, Germany and Russia worked together along with the Japanese?
And your analogy that if this is very similar to the axis of, during the World War II and World War I, yes. Why it's similar? Because if we understand the Islamic movement, we have to look at it from a very, the scope of a political movement or a military movement, not a religious movement. Religion is just an underlying or a uniting, ideology that keeps them together in a way or another. But basically, they are a political movement. And why I'm saying this? Because in political movements, usually the ends justify the means. And if there is a way that you can get something by applying Sharia law to the maximum, they will do it. If they're gonna, be a little bit leading in a little bit and not doing as much, they will do it. If it is good to work with the United States, it is okay. If it is bad, they will do it. Whatever helped them at this moment in time. And this is what Osama bin Laden, by the way, said during his time in Afghanistan. He said in one of his speeches early on that he worked with the United States of America when he was fighting the Russians. But after the Russian is gone, he is going to turn his focus on the great Satan, which is the United States of America. At the time when he was fighting the Russians, he had no problem whatsoever to work with Americans, be nice to Americans, and love on Americans, and take Americans' money and understand their plans and use everything that they have to offer. But as soon as he got rid of the small Satan, which is the Russian at that time, or the Soviet Union, as at that time, he had to turn his focus on the great Satan and so forth. Go ahead, Susan.
I had read that through refugee resettlement, we're bringing both the Sunnis and the Shiites. And the comment was they were comparing it also to like Somalis who have warring factions in their countries, and yet we're bringing all of them here. And is that dangerous? They're not going to automatically not be warring factions anymore just because they go from there to here. So, yeah,
So your question basically, if there is a war going on in Somalia and people are fighting with each other over there, and they're trying to make us believe that as soon as they get over here, they're going to be, angels and wings is going to start pumping up and all that kind of stuff. Well, America has a very amazing, interesting effect on people, but I don't think that much, So the fact, and I have been asked that question earlier, and I want to repeat actually the answer in a way. How can we look at immigration and people coming in the United States from the Muslim countries in general? Two things that we have to use while we are doing this. Number one is we have to trust but verify, which is the most amazing thing ever said by our great President Reagan, that we have to trust but verify. The second thing is we have to look, after World War II, we have lots of people coming from Germany. Not every one of them coming as a Nazi. Some people actually came to the United States and they are willing to change their ways and become better and adopt American values and so forth. And all of us, we know those and we knew how they function and so forth. It was easier for the United States to identify that, even though some people fell in the cracks as well. But it was easier because Western minds and Western way of thinking and also better understanding. And actually there was more honesty within the agencies in the United States at that time. Now there is lots of infiltration and lots of other things that is causing more problems and so forth, okay? But we have to look at it from that perspective, that you're gonna have some that are very nice and very good and coming to adopt American values and tired of stuff like that. But obviously, Nihad Awad was not one of those. Ilhan Omar was not one of those. She came over here, even though Congress and the biggest lobbyist, and both of them wear nice suits and stand with presidents and billionaires and all that kind of stuff, did not take away the fact that they are fighters from inside and not fighting for the United States of America, but for the exact opposite of that. So when you look at Ilhan Omar and Nihad Omar, those, or Nihad Awad, this is a good example of we should do a better job in assimilating those who wants to come to the United States and help them understand that they have an opportunity and why this opportunity and where it's coming from, and not just coming over here. And we are doing a very bad job in doing this, by the way. You know, I look at it from two perspectives, okay? The first perspective is when people come over here, they have to understand why we are welcoming and why we're opening our doors and why we give opportunities and so forth. Why refugees can come over here while we cannot. I myself, can I go and, or look at the Syrians, for example. The Syrians can come in the United States, but Syrians cannot go into Egypt. Egypt only took Syrians who has the money and open business, but somebody who doesn't have fortunate or does not have able to build a business and so forth for themselves, they are not allowed in Egypt. Why? Because over here we have the gospel of America and they have the gospel of Islam over there. So what is the gospel of America that is making us open our doors? It is based on our faith as a Christian nation. We are a Christian nation, but we are not adopting any religion as a religion of the country, but we are functioning from a Christian perspective, loving your neighbor, trusting, helping, benevolence, and so forth. And another thing is we are functioning from the freedom and the liberty and helping other and second chances and all of those things that do not exist in the mindset of Islamic countries or Somalia or Egypt or Jordan or all of those countries whatsoever. And we have to stand firm on those, and we have to educate people about those. They are coming over here when they first touch ground in the United States. I look at it, you know, and I was one of those, and then I've seen a lot of people coming over here, and I've been in the Middle East, and I understand when people come over here, they are very open when they first come over here because the opportunity that they are given to abide is like a kid wants something from their parents, but then very quickly they start learning their own, rights without understanding any of their obligations, and they start going to their old ways and even sometimes even worse than all their old ways. If that answers your question.
Mark, that's a dilemma that I have. Is that,
I think the whole country has.
I'd like to ask them to take off their hijabs.
Hijab.
Assimilate
Yeah.
Our culture, not ask me to assimilate to theirs.
Yeah.
I had a discussion with a Douglas County board member about that, and he says, "Well, that's the first time I ever heard that Islam is a political system." Yeah.
Well, this is the sad part in the United States. So there's another question from Jeff. Go ahead.
Mark, you talked about Iran, you talked about Saudi Arabia. Those countries, I'm guessing, have allies in the Muslim world.
Yeah, they do.
Who are the significant allies for Saudi Arabia and Iran? Where does Indonesia stand? Where does those countries?
That's a great question, Jeff. I'm going to repeat that question for our audience online and for everybody as well. Who are the alliance of Iran and who is the alliance of Saudi Arabia? And you are mentioning those two countries, and I think that's a very good mention of those two countries because today, you know, we talk about Sunni and Shia and so forth, and some of those terms are not, you know, very easy to say, even in the American way. But it's easy to understand that Iran today is the head of the Shia movement, and Saudi Arabia is the head of Sunni movement. So you can remove Sunni and Shia on the side and look at Iran and Saudi Arabia. They are fighting with each other. They don't like each other whatsoever. They are on a regular basis fighting with each other. Iran represents the Shia. 15% of Islamic world, which is the 1.3 billion Muslims out there, are Shia. The headquarters, the big country is Iran. Who are the affiliates of those? You know, there are small affiliates of it. They are scattered in Lebanon, in Syria, in Turkey, and in Iraq. Big part of Iraq is a Shia, 30% of Iraq almost, and Bahrain and other countries. So they are scattered all over. But the headquarters of Shia Islam is Iran. They are the capital of it. And one thing that Iran accomplished by the help of Jimmy Carter is they were able to establish their own caliphate. The Islamic Revolution of 1979 established Iran as the head of the Shia caliphate system. And their ambition is to take over the rest of the Muslim world altogether the Sunni, and be able to convert all of them to Shia and to be the head of the Caliphate of Islam or the Islamic Empire. They have been doing this since 1979, and this is why Soleimani is one of the leaders of that movement. They have never been successful, but they have been trying to instigate unrest in most other Sunni countries since the inception of 1979. Okay, what about the other side, Saudi Arabia as a Sunni? Saudi Arabia is the head of the Sunni movement. When they started early on, they had the same ambition of establishing Caliphate Islam or Caliphate Sunni Islam from Saudi Arabia. But the king of Saudi Arabia started working with Americans, and he forfeit his ambitions of building a caliphate, and he focused on Saudi Arabia only as his own country and started building alliance with other countries based on just alliance. And because of that, the rest of the Muslim Sunni did not like Saudi Arabia, and they want to overthrow the government of Saudi Arabia since that time, because they do not want to fulfill the prophecy of Islam by expanding and uniting the Muslim world under one Sunni Islamic movement. But they still have affiliates. Most of the Muslim countries, whether it is in Malaysia or Egypt or Jordan or the Northern Africa countries or all of those, the 85% of Muslim world, all of them can be considered, Pakistan, for example, considered affiliates of Saudi Arabia. This is why when the Iranians said that we're going to build nuclear weapons, the Saudis said, we're going to get some from Pakistan because this is our friends. This is our alliance. This is our back. You know, we are Sunni like each other. You know, Pakistan did not like that sentiment from the Saudis, but, you know, this is how they look at it. They're affiliates, but they are not united in one big body, at least yet. This is what the Muslim Brotherhood is trying to do. Make sense?
What is you talk about Sunnis and Shiites. They're Muslims. Their beliefs, aren't their religious beliefs the same?
Yes.
But why do they
fight?
Why do they fight and separate then if they're religious?
So the question is a very good question that goes to the core. I get it all the time, and I want to repeat the answer again. The question is, even though both Sunni and Shia are Muslims, and why they are fighting with each other? Okay. Before I say why they're fighting with each other, I want to tell you what is uniting them. So I have to make it clear. Both of them believe in the same exact Quran. Both of them believe in the exact same so-called prophet of Islam, Muhammad. Both of them believe in Sharia law, you know, verbatim. There's very few differences here and there, but they believe in the same Sharia law, which is Islamic law. So if they have the same belief, the same scripture, the same prophet, why they are fighting? For a very simple reason that goes back to the same idea that I mentioned earlier. Islam is a political movement. Muhammad was the king of Islam at the time of his death. He had an empire when he was about to die. That empire was only over the Arabian Peninsula. At the time of his death, there is two groups of people start fighting with each other. That led later on to the Shia and the Sunni. A group of people said, we are the kinsmen of Muhammad. He is the king, and he did not have any heirs to the kingdom, but we think that because he did not have any boys as kids, but he has a son-in-law, Ali, and we are supposed to appoint Ali as his son-in-law as the only heir to the kingdom of Islam. The other group said, no, wait a minute. We are powerful, we are strong, we are his military forces, we are his right-hand man, we are the one who built this movement from the ground up. We actually are more deserving of being the leaders and the kings and the heirs of the empire. And they fought while Muhammad in his deathbed, and actually they start fighting continuously till today. And this is why the fight. It is who is going to be the heir of the kingdom of Islam. That's exactly what's going on today. Okay? Make sense? Go ahead, Mark.
Why Saudi Arabia and UAE bombing Yemen?
The same exact reason why Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates are bombing Yemen. Okay? Why? Because Yemen has Iranian forces in there threatening Saudi Arabia. That actually was part of the chaos that Obama created. One of the things that Obama created was to overthrow the government of Yemen and replace it by a Muslim Brotherhood leaders. The Iranians did not like that whatsoever from Obama and what he's doing. So they start sending militia and equipping the Houthi, which is a leader over there. His name is Houthi, Muhammad Houthi. That no, I think it's not Muhammad. Maybe everybody's Muhammad, but he must have Muhammad. I forgot his name. You know, my name was Muhammad too. So you know, his name was Houthi something. I forgot his name. I'm very bad with names. I forgot names. Okay, so the Houthi movement was a Shia affiliates of Iranians, and when they saw that Obama is helping the Muslim Brotherhood take over Yemen, they sent, and that was good for Saudi Arabia. They didn't have a problem with that. They have a little bit, but not as much. But the Iranians jumped into the fight quickly, and they start equipping their Shia. This is why I said they are scattered everywhere. So they start, you know, giving weapons and training and so forth to the Houthi to stop Obama's, you know, plan in Yemen. And this is when the Saudi Arabia stepped in and said, we are not going to have an Iranian affiliates in our southern border. We're going to stop that from happening and taking place. And then they built the coalition between the United Arab Emirates and which is the Sunni fighting the Shia in Yemen. Make sense? Okay, you have a question?
Yes, Dr. Mark, we have a question from the internet from Linda. And she asked, how does Turkey fit into the Sunni Shia struggle regarding Islam? And she comments that Erdogan seems to think he will be the Sultan of the Caliphate.
That's a very good question. Actually, Turkey is something that, so the question about Turkey, you know, I think the question is over there. Do you hear that question or not? Did you? So the Turkish experience is very revealing, and it should be something that we all need to pay attention to. Turkey, after the fall of the Islamic Caliphate system, after the Ottoman Empire, if you heard about that in history and so forth, and back in 1924, they became a very secular government, very secular Islamic country, that they kept Islam by name only, but they actually forbid people to wear hijab in the streets. They forbid people to pray in the streets to stop. You know, Muslims have the tendency to, when the call of prayers comes in as a show of faith and so forth, that they build, fill mosques and then start overflow outside in the streets, or just stop anywhere and start praying. And the Turkish government, the secular government, said no more of that, because this is stopping commerce and it's not good. If you want to pray, pray in the mosque or pray at your home. You are not allowed. It is against the law. And they start putting many other laws against Sharia law. They abandoned Sharia law completely, which is Islamic law, and forsaken it completely and became a very secular country. Okay, and they continued that way for years. And when they joined the NATO, they were actually a secular country at that point as well. And they were planning to join the European Union. Margaret Thatcher happens to be a very smart lady in a way, right? She actually understood what's going on, and she understood the easy flip of a secular Muslim into an Islamist at some point in time, which is exactly what happened. At that time, nobody have seen that whatsoever. She started saying we should not let Turkey into the, even in the planning of the European Union, it was not implemented yet. And it became part of the European Union struggle and the Turkish struggle. They tried to put themselves into the European Union, and there was always putting regulations. So till today, they are not part of the European Union, but they are part of the NATO. And here is what happened. All of a sudden, that secular country was overtaken by a Muslim Brotherhood, which is Erdogan. He built a small party from lots of Islamists, within, and start condemning people for not being Muslim enough and secular, and they are supposed to stick to Islam and not to be secular anymore, condemning them, shaming them of not being good Muslims. And very quickly he was able to rise up as a mayor of Istanbul, and then later on became the vice president, and then he became the president. And now Turkey is run by a Muslim Brotherhood, Erdogan, and it's a safe haven for the Muslim Brotherhood dissident from other countries like Egypt and other countries as well. So they are over there. It's a safe haven for the Muslim Brotherhood in a simple term. How does it fit in with the caliphate? Each one of those leaders, Muslim Brotherhood leaders, wants to establish the caliphate. Erdogan at some point in time would think that he would be, but why are you laughing? but he's not going to be able to do it. And you know, I talked about Erdogan and Trump, and really there is a very interesting, I would say, fight or a rivalry going on. It was not, you know, Erdogan will be a very good friends with Obama and Clinton, and he was. With Trump is not. And, you know, he's trying to play smart on Trump multiple times, but the Trump administration has been putting him in his place very well. And you have seen what took place when the debate was going on over the Syrian border. And there is another debate about the F-35, which is the top military fighter jets that Erdogan paid money for it, but he was trying to sell its technology to the Russians in the behind our back. And, you know, Trump and the defense was able to catch that very quickly. And many people say, you know, he would sell for anything for money. No, he's not. He took his money from Erdogan and said, we're not going to give you your fighter jet until you forfeit your plans for selling our technology to the Russians and so forth. So Erdogan is in his place because of Trump. He is a threat. He is harboring the Muslim Brotherhood. He is trying to be the head of the caliphate or the second sultan. This is what Muslim says, but the reality is he's not that successful. Make sense? Okay.
That brings a question from me. How dangerous is it for Turkey to be going into Libya right now? Is it? It's
all very dangerous. Yes. So this is another chaos of Obama. Obama overthrew the dictator of Libya. So you don't want me to repeat the question, or you got it? You know, Erdogan going into Turkey, into Libya. You know, you have heard about Gaddafi, right? Many of you, because, you know, he was very popular for many years in the United States and you know, as a terrorist and guy. And he's a dictator. He's crazy guy. He was completely wacko. You know, he's, you know, if you listen to him in different stages in Arabic and stuff like that, he's a crazy dude, okay? He's dead now, and Hillary killed him, and she said that, you know. Some people try to say, oh, she never, well, she did. She actually killed him. She was there. She overseen the operation until he was, and he died in a very horrible way. But should we celebrate that? I don't celebrate the killing of anybody, but the fact is she overthrew him and trying to implement the Muslim Brotherhood in place. And this is when the Iranians and the Russians intervened very quickly. Until today, there is no government in Libya whatsoever. So who wants to take advantage of this? Because they have enormous amount of oil and money. Erdogan is to expand his power across the Mediterranean and to start, you know, building up. And one of the reasons that he wants to take Libya is a couple of reasons. Number one, a threat to Egypt, because he is very competitive with the Egyptian government, and he wants to help the Muslim Brotherhood establish over there. And Libya is strategically working with the Egyptians, and also the second thing with the oil and so forth. Yeah, I'm looking at you. So,
you know, when you talk about the regimes, you know, because Rocket Man in Korea is crazy, and you know they're all crazy, but the Iranian guy, Khomeini, he's almost dead.
Well,
he's in his 80s, and I've heard he has cancer, but he.
Well, he's like at the same age as like Biden. so.
But isn't that? But each one wants to be head of the Muslim
yes,
world.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Real fight of all these crazy leaders, because they're all crazy. Each one, even though they're Muslims, they all want to be the head dog. Is that right?
You are saying that the question is Muslim leaders are crazy. I would agree with that. And they hate each other. And this is, see, at the time of death of Muhammad, you have to understand that Muslims have been fighting with each other since the inception of Islam. And all of them wants to be leaders because it's a political movement. And, you know, there is no grace, there is no love, there is no, you know, brotherhood and stuff like that. Each one of them, they build the kind of a gang with themselves. And then all of a sudden, this gang is fighting this gang. And that has been going on with Islam. You know, the dynasties of Islam have changed over the years because of that. A small dynasty start here, and then they start becoming powerful, and then taking the rest of the power. Today, is it the same case? Yes, but within the Shia Islam, they don't do that. Why? Because they accepted the leadership of Ayatollah Khomeini as the head of the Shia Islam, and you know, I want to make a point over here. if you look at the difference between the regime of Iran and the regime of Saudi Arabia, they are similar in many ways. Both of them implement Islamic law. Both of them, they claim very religious status. Both of them are looking like they are holy than anything else and following Muhammad and Islam to the T. But there is big difference between the two, which is hating America and hating Israel. This is the main thing, the difference between the two. The Saudis pretend to be friends of the United States, and they are working with the United States to benefit themselves and somehow, sometimes benefit us as well, okay? The Iranians are not on that page whatsoever. And this is why the Iranians regime is more respected within the jihadists more than the Saudis. Why? Because of the love of or hatred of the United States. And why actually they call about the United States is not because of freedoms that we have and all of that stuff. It is because of the support of the state of Israel. The Muslims terrorists all over, they always talk about that America is horrible. It is the head of Satan. It is the head of the snake. All of those terms that they give them because the United States is helping Israel. And because, you know, Israel is the corner and the hatred bonding point between all the terrorists. Make sense? Okay. You have a question back there?
I was wondering if you could expand or expound a little bit on Jimmy Carter's role. Did he actually promote the Ayatollah, or just the fact that he threw the Shah under the bus?
He did actually. That's a very good question. What did Jimmy Carter do with the Ayatollah Khomeini? He is the guy.
That's a key date for you. And,
yes, it's a key date, and I wanted actually to go back, and I got distracted with all of that stuff, all those questions. But I like to answer questions as well. Jimmy Carter was not very clear about what he's trying to do. He was manipulated, and his right man guy, Kissinger, was the one who was kind of deciding things and how things work. So when it comes to Iran, he, in the very beginning, supported Ayatollah Khomeini to rise to power. He was helping him to go. Ayatollah Khomeini went to Syria first, find safe haven with Assad the dad, and then from there he went to Iran, and he was helping the movement over there. There is different kind of theories. How did he do that? But he was helping. Ayatollah Khomeini was able to rise in power. They call it by the cassette. They were able to spread. You know, there was no social media at that time. There was no Google at that time. So they were using cassettes to spread within Iran to, unite the people and change them to be more Islamist and to welcome Ayatollah Khomeini as the savior. And this is why he was able to rise in power. But then as soon as that happened, Shah Iran, the previous leader, was sick with cancer. And he left, and he didn't know where to go, and his family is in the United States. Shah Iran, when he had cancer, he wanted to get some treatment. He had cancer, pancreatic cancer. So Carter did the unholy mistake after helping after helping the Khomeini to come in power. He secretly provided a plane for Shah Iran to come to the United States for treatment, and that what triggered the attack on the embassy. All of a sudden, the Iranians said, you know, you are stabbing in our back. We're not going to work with you. Carter kicked up the Shah of Iran out of the United States immediately so he can save his relationship with the Ayatollah Khomeini. It did not work out whatsoever. And the Shah ended up to go to Egypt, and he died in the hospital I used to work in 1980. So Carter was not really, well, I didn't study in depth, so I cannot answer you details, but those are, you know, highlights of what took place at that time. And it shows that out of ignorance, out of naivety, out of not understanding, out of starting to build a legacy for himself, he was so much involved into the peace treaty between Egypt and Israel at that time, and he wanted to have any influence whatsoever in the Middle East. You know, that was he wanted to have so much power in the Middle East and so forth. And sometimes you have to do that after studying the Middle East a little bit more. I think he was not doing it very well. Make sense? Okay.
Got another.
He was very naive. Kissinger was not naive. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not gonna agree or disagree. I really don't know. Go ahead.
We have a question from the internet. Carol asks, do you think that the concept of taqiyya, sacred deception, is something that Saudi Arabia is using to further the cause of jihad?
the question about taqiyya is a very important question. Taqiyya means cover up. Okay, taqiyya actually literally means a cover on the head, taqiyya, which means that you put a cover in your head to cover your real intentions and so forth. Okay, there is Islam forbids lying. It is one of the ultimate sins in Islam to lie. But what does that mean? Lying to other Muslims is the ultimate sin. Lying to non-Muslims is not as much as bad, especially when it is going to further the cause of Islam. And this is why taqiyya, which is cover up, is allowed in Islam, which is this kind of deception and lying to further the cause of Islam or to save your own life. These are the two reasons that you can do that. But there is another thing that is actually more dangerous than this, which is what Saudi Arabia is doing. They're not lying. They are following the theology of necessity. The necessity is a legal term in the United States, but it is part of Islamic law. When it is necessary to do something, then it is allowed under Islamic law. So for Saudi Arabia, they actually looked at what was going on, to understand where Saudi Arabia is here today. Mohammed bin Salman, the new crown prince, the young guy, he has so much ambitions to change the whole royal family and the whole royal line of Saudi Arabia and keep it in his own house and not in the Saud house anymore, which is his grandfather. He wants to keep it within his own house. The other thing is he looked at what Obama did with, before that and how the change of regimes and so forth. And he could not continue with the fight against the United States. The third thing is he wants to remove the threat of Iran out of his way because he was, this is one of the biggest enemy of Saudi Arabia. Iranian, Shia, Sunni, Saudi Arabia, they want to, remove each other and so forth. So because of that, and also because of 9/11 and the attack against, Islam, or the highlighting the Islamic doctrine and what is entitling and all that kind of stuff, he decided to make changes on the front so he can appease to the United States and ask the United States and Trump to help him in his agenda. Fight Iran, get me into power, let us remove the paint of us, the terrorists and so forth. And this is why for the first time, he put a party for the New Year's Eve for the first time in Saudi's history. Well, should we be happy? Well, nice Chinese fireworks going on and very nice, stuff going on. Is it real? I don't think so. It will never, ever be real. He's a Muslim into the core. He's just following the theology of necessity. So how can we deal with this? And do I actually support Trump administration with working with Crown Prince? I do. Even though I know that they are lying to us, I know that they are deceiving us, but I do. But we have to do it in this way. We have to be able to understand that the guy in front of me is actually lying as well, and maybe take advantage of what he has to offer me. What he has to offer me today, Saudis are offering to be sitting on the table and accepting Israel as a nation and to stop the Israel-Arab conflict, and also willing to put money to support this agenda and to change the dynamics and put some and jail and stop the imams who are pushing jihad out of mosques and out of their stages. So I will support all of that stuff 100%. Do I trust them for eternity? Absolutely not. Again, we need to trust them, but verify. We need to understand on the long run. Here is one thing that the Muslim world understand very well, and the Iranians today understanding. I get a question earlier about what is the Iranian kind of plan and what is the Saudi plan. Both of them have the same plan in a different perspective. The Iranians right now are falling apart. Trump was able to put so much economical pressure on them in a very interesting and very strong way, and was able to implement it in the best way ever, and also to force other nations to do those kind of implementation. But the Iranians are falling apart. Their hope that they will run the clock on Trump. They are hoping that 8 months from now, no more Trump and things will be better. And pray to God that's not going to be the case. We're going to continue the same policies going forward. The other thing with the Saudis, they say, we have Trump for 4 years today, or for another 4 years. We'll take advantage of this to further our agenda. But then after that, if we change or if we go back to our old ways, nobody will stop us. We got what we need. So how can we overcome this? Have a continuity of our policies and understanding that we need to stay on the same path. We stop hating on Trump or not Trump. We have to understand that the policies are good for the United States to be a national, not all of a sudden have another Obama who comes in and push the Muslim Brotherhood or is going to do something. Because you have to believe this, if you know, better believe this, that all of a sudden after 8 years of Trump and you got another person that is going to be a Muslim Brotherhood sympathizer, the Saudis has no problem whatsoever to get imams out of jail or create new ones, put them on the stage and push Islam as the best after they get what they want. They're not going to have any problem with that. Again, the theology of necessity. Make sense?
Right. Another question.
Go ahead, Mark.
I see the Iraqi government is struggling between Iran, Saudi Arabia, United States.
Yes.
What is your vision about the Iraqi plan down the road?
I will take actually myself a Nobel Peace Prize if I answered that question. So the question is, what is the future of Iraq and what do you think is going to happen over there? I think that going back to my previous point, if anybody, I will give him the benefit of the doubt and say that George W. Bush was naive when he went into Iraq, because he had. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because other options is bad. Okay. The fact of the matter is he went into Iraq believing that he is going to go, and he did not understand the dynamics over there. A country that is divided equally between the Kurds and the Shia and the Sunni. And they will never, ever, you're not going to get those together whatsoever. Ever. Okay? And you know that, right? So he did not know that fact. You send military forces and troops and have a plan for a country, not understanding the nature of the country. And one of the things he thought, he's going to go in and remove Saddam, and he's going to create a very nice table like this one, and he's going to put the Shiite over here, and the Kurds over here, and the Sunni over there. He literally did that, by the way. If you look at the picture, he did that. Big room like this, and he had the Shiite and the Sunni and the Kurds, and let's sit together and form out a federal government, the federal of Iraq. You know, people start shooting each other on that table. Seriously, I'm not kidding you. There was fights going on that table and continue spilling on. Okay, I'm not over here trying to. Well, yeah, I'm factual. You know, this is what's happening, and this is what happened in this place. So today, why they are having this divide? Because Iran wants to have the influence of the Shiite over there and build an extension into Iraq and to have, you know, a holy land for them. And here is why Iraq is very special to the Iranians. Even though Iran is the head of the Shiite caliphate system, but most of the shrines and the holy places of Shiite, which is the grave sites of their imams and the top leaders, all of them are in Iraq. So for them, Iraq is an extension, lots of oil, lots of, you know, influence, plus it is very holy, and it is kind of a very holy fight to include Iraq. The Sunni was not going to ever do that, and they don't want that and happening. So the fight is going on nonstop. To stop the fight, this go back to Soleimani, and I wanted to talk about him today even more. But Soleimani was a very dynamic, very charismatic, and very well loved by the terrorists all across because of his stance against the state of Israel, because of his support to other terrorists, even from the Sunni side, and giving them safe haven, because of his strong stance against the United States in an unbelievable way, and so forth. So he was key in all of this. And also he was key in instigating the Shiite and helping them fight the Sunni and the Kurds. So removing him, you know, it is easy to, you know, put another leader in his place, yes? But the fact of the matter is, it's very hard to replace somebody like Soleimani. And, you know, by the way, the target attack that we had on Soleimani not only killed Soleimani, but killed also his second-hand man that he could have taken his place. So they have to resort to further down the road. And the new leader, I'm not, you know, we don't see him yet, but I don't think he's going to be as proliferative as Soleimani was. So it was a great attack. It was very well thought, very well planned, and it fits into the agenda altogether. It is going to help in stabilizing Iraq. Today, it is not. I believe on the long run, it is. So what is the future for Iraq? If the Iranian regime fall apart, then their grip on Iran will lessen, and then maybe somehow they will find somehow to do something together. How it's going to work, I really have no idea. The natural way, they will split into 3 countries.
Well, Iran,
And that's horrible too, but by the way, it's not good.
Iranian people they don't want this regime. I mean, from what I've
Who's that?
Iranian people,
Yes.
they don't want what they're.
Yes. So you talk about the Iranians do not like their leaders. Well, here is.
They want what we have.
Let me answer that question very quick, okay? So are the Iranian people are not, or they are fighting the regime? Yes and no. The old guards or the old citizens of Iran, they already stayed over there, brainwashed, believe that Iranian regime and their regime is protecting them from the invasion of the horrible West and the promiscuity and the horrible ideas of the West. The younger generation and the middle age, some of them, because of social media, because they want education and music, they are against that and they want to fight that. So there is both parts. And there's really people believe that Iranian regime is protecting them the same way that North Korea is. They believe that, they're this guy, the blob that they have in North Korea, that he is going to be like protecting them from the invasion of Americans and destruction and stuff like that. Praise God, they have some kind of rules on it. But when you are fed propaganda all the time, praise God, well, I was going to say praise God that we don't have any brainwashing over here. But when I look at the kids and the younger generation and the social media, I kind of have to, but we still have freedom over here, right?
Most people don't have access to, I mean, they're so overpowered and so brainwashed.
You talk about they have access or not to social media. I was going to make the point. Over here, we do not have the same brainwashing. Well, we do in schools and stuff like that. But when you have closed mind, and you shame people in believing, and you make them afraid of stuff, you have no idea how much powerful that is. But they don't have access. Legally, they are not having access. The Iranians do not have access. The Saudis don't have access as well before. But there is new technologies right now and new ways with the changing of VPN and all that kind of stuff. They're able to change their devices and traveling and stuff like that. And there is information that is coming in, and there is some kind of, some people think differently and so forth. So within Iran, there is a lot of people that wants to overthrow the government and have a free nation like the way that was before 1979. And Iran, by the way, was a beautiful country, and they have amazing mountains and beaches and lakes, and it's a beautiful country. We've never seen that because since 1979 they have been Sharia abiding and the horrible thing that's going on. So some of them wants to have their country back. Others wants to stick with the country, and this is why there is protest and there is fighting. But make no mistake, the Iranian regime has been weakened like never before, but because of Trump sanctions and the economical stuff that he's putting them. They are hanging on a very small thread. And what they did, if you don't mind, if you give me 5 minutes, why the genius of the attack on Soleimani? I talked before about this. The Iranian regime is begging for a war. Why? Because they are falling apart, and for them, a war with the United States is the best hope for them. How is that? Because they are going to continue instigating the United States. This is their plan was, instigating the United States. And as soon as we respond, like Bush's or others attack, then they will cry foul and they will run to the European nations and say, save us, and so forth. Why the European nations wants to go for the rescue? Because the European countries are finding Iran as an opportunity, economical opportunity. Lots of money, especially the billions of dollars we send them, and they have been closed since 1979. So they want to go over there and build cars and build factories and so forth. It is nothing to do about ideology. So this was their plan, okay? And Trump kept on dodging the bullet, and I explained this a couple of times over here. But then the last one, Trump told them, if you killed American, we will get you. And they were waiting for it. Finally, we get it, right? But he did not go attack them because their cry foul would say, Americans are killing our kids, are killing women, are killing people, has nothing to do anything. He killed the leader. So they couldn't do anything other than we will take for his revenge. And the genius of the Trump administration is the speech that he gave after the killing of Soleimani. And in that speech, maybe people don't pay attention to this, but he said, I called on the NATO and the European nations to join the fight with me. So he blocked it at them immediately. And that was genius. That's right now, they are in a free fall and waiting for the clock to run. And this is their best hope, because they are not going to be able to instigate a war with the United States. They will try. I'm not taking anything off the table, but they are struggling beyond anything. They might fall tomorrow, today, anytime, but it is a serious issue, okay? And the other thing is, I want to share with you, I don't know if you read the news, away from the stuff. I talked about the deal of the century a lot. Finally, Trump today, 3 hours ago, said he's going to announce the deal of the century. And he actually did something very interesting as well. See, there is a divide within Israel, and I talked about that, and the election going over there between Netanyahu and Gantz. You know what he did? He invited both of them. He said, come to the White House next Tuesday, and he's going to announce the deal of the century, or the peace plan, as he called it, next Tuesday. And during lunch today, I was, praise God. Hopefully everything will go fine. And, during lunch today, I was saying, I'm frustrated because he needs to get it done. We need to hear Larry, the cable guy, say, get it done, right? Stop waiting. But, finally it has been announced just 3 hours ago.
So Iran,
We have to end.
If it's okay, well, if it's okay to go over a little bit, there's tremendous interest from the internet, and just a couple of questions on Iran still before we get finished.
I have to ask everybody, are you okay to stay for 7:15? Are you okay? Everybody is okay? If you want to leave, you can leave. No offense.
We have
Okay.
John and Esther. John and Esther asked, prior to 1979, was Islam still the primary religion of Iran, or what?
Oh, yes. Well, the question was Islam is the primary religion in Saudi Arabia and Iran and all of those countries? Yes. But here is the thing. It was the same like Turkey. You have Muslims who are very secular. Shah Iran, the previous regime in Iran, was an unbelievably secular guy. He was putting parties like crazy and so forth. And one of the reasons that he fell, actually, he put an extravaganza party that invited all the leaders and so forth. So they were Muslim by name only. And then they flipped into this Sharia-abiding country.
Another question. Ruth Ann asks about the OIC and all of the countries that she asks, is Islam actually apparently united under the OIC? How does the OIC fall into the scheme of
OIC, which is what? Organization Islamic countries?
There's like 57.
Yes, actually, that's a very good question, because it is a very interesting thing. My dad, by the way, is part of that, that organization, and I have a picture with me and him as a kid in that organization, by the way, in their meeting, the first meeting in Cairo. It's going to be in my book when it comes out. Okay, it's one of those things. I need to get it done as well, right? I know. I'm asking the same question. Please pray for me. There's lots of hurdles, lots of satanic attacks on me for that book. So please pray for me, and I will do it if it's the last thing I will do in my life. Okay, I will do it. I'll get it done. So the very interesting thing that this organization that is unbelievably against the state of Israel, they put a coalition yesterday to go visit the Holocaust locations and to accept and understand and talk about the Holocaust for the first time. Well, that's a good victory, because it's coming from Saudi Arabia and leading it and so forth. Should we be happy? I'm still going to be happy. Just the fact that those imams got together and went over there to see the Holocaust places. I'm very bad in names. You can call them yourself, okay? And to make a press conference and so forth is a great thing. Would I believe it at its face value? Still not. I know. Again, it is the theology of necessity. They are pleasing Trump. They are trying to get their agenda moving. The Saudis are. But I will take it. I'm so happy that it's taking place. So.
One quick question, Linda.
But they are uniting Sunni, by the way. So they are not Shia. There is no Shia within that organization.
Linda asked, is there an Arabic name for the theology of necessity?
Oh my goodness. Switching. What is the necessity in Arabic? What's the meaning? I forgot Arabic. Huh? Ittihad? No, not ittihad. ها؟ الغاية تبرر الوسيلة. The need, yeah. احتياج. الغاية تبرر الوسيلة. Let me think about. I forgot Arabic. That's good, actually. But still have the accent. You know, I don't know why.
Martin on the internet has a question. Why is the U.S. so willing to share technology and equipment with the Saudis when it's obvious that they're not loyal to the commitment to the U.S.?
That's a great question. Actually, that was supposed to be the second topic I'm going to talk about today. Let me give it very quickly, okay? So we saw that the Saudi kid who were military, personnel that launched an attack in the peninsula, right? The thing is, this program started also in 1979, right after the treaty that was signed between Israel and Egypt, the Camp David with Carter. He offered immediately to the Egyptians that he will equip their military forces and he will give them the aid of $3 billion and 1.5 in military and 1.5 in other aids and so forth. And he also offered them that they're going to give them training into the United States of America. And that opened the door for a lot of military personnel coming from Egypt to the United States for training. But the program did not stop there. It started expanding. Today, we have Saudis, Emiratis, Jordanians, Omanis, every Muslim country and non-Muslim countries coming to the United States for training. Here is the problem. Two things. Number one, they have full access to our top technology, even our methods in intelligence and so forth. Well, that would be good if all of them are true affiliates and have our back as Americans, don't you think? But again, there is necessity and there is different people. It is worse than immigration, by the way. And here is the other thing. For years, even though our vetting system for immigration and for people coming in the country was defected, but there is nothing more defected than that program itself. Why? Because they were depending on other governments. Like if the Saudis are coming over here, they are assumed they get a automatic visa immediately and get enrolled right away because they are depending on the Saudi government vetting for those who come to the United States, and they do very minimal vetting. Okay, but and that's true for the Turkish. That is true for all the Muslim countries and other nations as well. That is very defective because you are giving the fox the key to the hen, right? Is that the right? Yeah, I forgot Arabic, but I cannot forget those stuff. So, huh? There was nothing. There was no pause. Actually, the program continued expanding because we start having this. We're gonna sell weapons. We're gonna train you over here, and it became a program that is expanding like crazy. And right now we have tons of foreigners who are having full access. Sisi of Egypt, for example, the current president, he was one of those students. And there is others as well. There is lots of them. And there is people who are Muslim Brotherhood, and there is people who are not, and because no vetting was going on, and they have full access to our system. So when the attack took place and they start digging into some of the Saudis, they start understanding that there is a defect within the system. They did not put full announcement, but it was somehow they start looking into it in more details, but it's still very defective. They were able to find some association with jihad and child pornography. And by the way, child pornography is not against Islam. You can marry at 9 years old. So it's not really, so in their mind, it is not doing anything wrong, but they don't talk about that. So there is start vetting and start digging into the program only in the Saudis. My hope is that this will be expanded even more to everybody who's coming to the United States and do a real vetting. That's my hope. And but they are not. I don't know how much is going on, but this is how far. I want to talk more about that topic, but I don't have time. Go ahead.
We'll get one more.
I will take this question and I will take yours after that. Yes.
His job was to go pick up people from other countries.
Yeah, pick up. Yeah.
From the airport.
Yes.
They immediately want to know where the casinos were.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Women or,
Yes, absolutely.
and a lot of them disappeared.
Yeah, yeah.
Never
Came back.
for anything.
Yeah.
Just kinda,
So and by the way, see, this is why we are looking at the issue if you look at it from a religious perspective, Islam as a religious perspective, then you will see that this is wrong. It doesn't happen. How is that working, right? But actually, I actually look at those people who are going to those places and going crazy because they have been oppressed under their Sharia law abiding countries, that I would be worried about them. And I have to highlight that Muhammad Atta, the head of the Egyptian head of the 9/11 attackers, was actually having a girlfriend out of wedlock, American lady, and he was going to bars and going to the things as well. And the guy who did the attack in Miami, he was having some kind of homosexual affinities and so forth. So here is why this happens. There is no redemption in Islam, and they are human beings who have been oppressed. So when they feel that tendency of doing a sin, which is everything of those stuff that you mentioned, is an unbelievable sin. Some Muslims says, I will commit the sin and I will try to ask for forgiveness and I will change my ways in the future as I get older. Some of them, they love it so much, and human beings and men and stuff like that, and they start struggling with it. Some of them struggle with it to the limit that they are having no way out. They want to be redeemed. They want to go to heaven, and they could not do anything about it. So they decide, well, the best way to be completely redeemed is to go and launch a terrorist attack and fight for the cause of Islam. I'll be forgiven for my sin. And this is what Muhammad Atta and other people for 9/11 did. So they will be coming over here. Yeah, this is one thing from a perspective of, terrorism. But the other perspective is Islam is a religion of necessity, and they will try to do some stuff, and then they will ask for repentance later on, and so forth. Make sense? Yeah.
Okay, quick question that has to do a little bit with immigration. Do you have any comment or observations about Canada and their open doors policy toward Arabic immigration?
Well, Canada needs a couple of hours. Canada is messed up. Trudeau is a very interesting dude altogether, and they are the head of the immigration over there is a guy from Somalia, I believe, a Muslim guy from Somalia. So it is they are selling their soul for the cause of acceptance and to further their own country. It's like a counterfeit of America, so they're trying to do anything they can do, and it's a very sad situation actually in Canada. So I don't want to go into more details, but Canada is
the internet is just alive with interest in this talk tonight, and there's another.
They need to come over to Nebraska. That's what they need to do. Let's enjoy this for Nebraska.
There's a question about Libya from Carol, and if she would ask for you to comment on one of the reasons that Gaddafi was overthrown by Mr. Obama had to do with the possible establishment of an Islamic form of currency in moving away from American petrodollars.
No, has nothing to do with currency or anything. For removal of Gaddafi has nothing to do with currency or he's trying to do a currency. It was basically removing Gaddafi and replace him with a Muslim Brotherhood Islamist government over there. And that was happening in Tunisia. They wanted to do that. And then Libya, it was Egypt, it was Yemen, it was Syria, and all of those countries that this were trying to do. And here is the thing. Who actually was opposing Obama the most? It was the Russians and the Iranians. So what he did is he struck a deal and gave a bribe to the Iranians. So they stopped bothering him, and he could not do anything with the Russians. And this is why the Russians were his biggest enemy. And this is why we are dealing with Trump and Russians still today. Make sense? You want me to repeat that? Who caught him in his tracks? The Russians and the Iranians. And those are the two countries that were going after Hillary and Obama. And they changed. You remember Hillary was trying to say, let us reset the button and have a good relationship and let us kiss. And, Putin and the Russians do not want to kiss Hillary, and I don't blame them, okay? And the second thing is, what's that? Yeah, and the second thing, the Iranians took the bribe and did absolutely nothing. They continue opposing Obama and make fun of him. And the Russians did not do anything whatsoever was not tempted by kissing Hillary. I can say that, okay? So, yeah, I'm gonna, thank you very much for all of you coming today, actually over here and fighting the snow. Thanks for all of those online. Hopefully we'll see you next month. And I will introduce Mark Wada. the chairman of Global Faith Institute, and he's my friend. So thank you very much. He was going to take us out in prayers and other things. Thank you.
Can we have a hand for Dr. Mark? How blessed are we, not only here, but all of you watching on the internet and the United States, and having someone like Dr. Mark, who's so uniquely equipped that God has called to this point, and we consider him the point of the spear in this battle against encroaching Islam in the United States. But the tip of the spear also needs a shaft to be effective and everything. And he's got the Global Faith Board and many supporters. We don't want him to have to look back and worry about his backside and his finances and everything. So we're trying to raise an army of 300. Does that sound a little familiar from the Bible and Gideon's army? An army of 300 that would give $30 a month or more. That's $1 a day. It's a cup of coffee, less than a cup of coffee a day. But that would just provide a financial base for Mark, so he could just focus forward and not have to look back. And that's what we, as supporters, are trying to do. So those of you on the internet, globalfaith.org, you can, we'll put up a link to next Thursday's, fourth Thursday of the month, speak that will be live streaming again. And also there's a link at globalfaith.org where you can go in and sign up to give monthly, $30 or more. Or if you prefer to do a one-time gift, you know, if it hits the $360 a month, we'll count that as a $30 a month, and we'll report back to you next month to see what our numbers are up to. But we would like to relieve Dr. Mark of that burden and let him really focus on the battle ahead. As he said, I can't even imagine the spiritual battles that he's having and writing that book, and it's a real challenge. But we'd like him to be able to stay focused on the task at hand. It is the fourth Thursday of every month that we'll plan to be here. If you sign up for our emails, if something should happen, if Mark Christian has to be out of town or something, we'll send out an email to that effect. We'll put it on our website. That's rare, but it can happen. So be sure to get signed up that way. I'll go ahead and close us in prayer, okay? Father God, we love you. We're grateful for Dr. Mark. We pray that you would protect him and all of us and our country, and pray that truth and justice and freedom would prevail. We commit it in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all.
Amen.
And I have one last announcement. I watched the whole thing on my iPhone tonight. And so what you can do and tell your friends to do is I send out a link. And when you see that link, it says the enemies within. Don't let that scare you, because that's the title of the whole series. And the people who are putting this together, they bring in a lot of really great people like Mark. So they might have one a week. And it's all called The Enemies Within. But if you register, one-time registration, which I did, name and email address, if they really don't want a lot, they'll send you an email every time there's an Enemies Within webinar. And then you can decide whether you want to, watch it. It might not be Mark, it might be somebody else. Or the fourth Thursday of every month, it will be Mark. So if you can't make it, it's snowing out. Well, we may not make it either then. But or if you want to tell your friends about it who can't come and watch it, then have them do it online. And then, like we said, we will take this whole program and put it on our website so you can watch it anytime. But don't be worried when you see the enemy within. That's us. Okay? Thank you. Have a great evening.